Okay, good afternoon to all of you. I am Dr. Aisha from the Malay Studies Department, and I'm here to share with you some information about Malay Studies, so hopefully you can correct some of the misconceptions you might have, or even be more properly informed about this area of studies that you may want to consider reading in the course of your 3 or 4 years here, right? But first, I also forgot to congratulate you for working so hard and making your way here. Okay. Having spoken to many students across many years now, I feel that one of the major misconceptions that students have about Malay studies, which I think ought to be debunked, is that at Malay studies we teach Malay language, right? Well, that is really far from the truth, right? We don't have actually any modules. I'll speak with this one. We don't have any modules on Malay language. In fact, we don't even have any modules on linguistics. All our modules, except for Malay literature and Indonesian literature, are all taught in English because it is a department that is meant to serve every other person who wants to know something about Malay Indonesian societies. So we don't have any modules in Malay except for literature. And if you want to read Malay, of course, the faculty offers that, but in a different program, the Center for Language Studies program, right? So you don't need Malay as a requirement, but as in the case of all area studies, of course, if you have some grounding in the language, it will be an advantage for you, as in you can read some of the sources in Malay language, right? But that's as far as it goes. Beyond reading, you won't be able to analyze it if you don't do Malay studies with the relevant perspectives and concepts and tools that we try to impart to students. So there's no advantage actually, because even based on our experiences, we find that non-Malay students do very well, sometimes even better than Malay students, because the language alone, though it may be an advantage for you to access sources, may not be all that important when it comes to analysis. Okay? So for our exposure modules as well, for all the other modules that we offer across various levels, most of it, like I said, is taught in English. But then if you want to major in Malay studies, then of course you must have at least an O-level pass in Malay language. And if you don't, but you still want to major in Malay studies, then you can do the Center for Language Studies Malay modules, Basic Malay 1 and 2, not offered by our department, offered by the Center for Language Studies, which also complements the fulfillment of your requirements to graduate. Okay? So I hope you understand that language is not going to be a barrier if you want to know something about Malay studies and read the modules here. The other thing also related to Malay language, I think, is the impression that at Malay studies we train people to become Malay teachers. Okay? This is also another misconception. The training of Malay teachers is done at NTU, not at the Department of Malay Studies. So we here train students, just like any other discipline or area studies in FASS, to ensure that students become generalists, well-grounded in their disciplines, as well as have that competing edge to be good in Malay studies, to understand the Malay community and the Malay societies in Southeast Asia, right? We have Malay societies all over the world, but the focus of our department is basically Southeast Asian Malays, okay? Because we don't have that much resources to spread ourselves around the globe to understand Malay societies across Southeast Asia, beyond Southeast Asia. So our focus has always been on this region, right? Now, actually Malay studies also, I think another misconception is that it is a very parochial area and only taught in Malay countries like Malaysia or Indonesia, right? And I think this is again another misconception. Malay studies is a very developed and established field of area studies, and it's offered in many, many universities across the globe, both in Asia as well as in Western Europe and America and Australia, everywhere on the continent. Okay? And of course, the origins of Malay studies have a lot to do with political and historical roots, right? A large part of the Malay world were colonized by these foreign powers, and therefore they have established very early in time universities or programs to look into the societies in which they governed. And to a large extent, of course, their scholarship, their research, and their writings are very much conditioned by their political interests. And along the way, of course, these interests have changed and waned, and we know from some sources that, in some of these countries, there's been a crisis, so-called, in Malay studies, right? Because of, certain perspectives or certain thrusts that they have had in the study of the Malays, which are no longer deemed useful politically to their relevant governments today. So I must say that, for us here, Malay Studies at FASS, I think we offer a very unique, distinct, and as best as we can, a very comprehensive curriculum, which I don't think you can compare with any other programs or departments, even in Southeast Asia. Okay? It's unique and it's comprehensive based on the resources that we have, because our thrust and our focus, I think, has been very different. Initially, of course, here in Singapore, Malay Studies was set up in the context of the colonial period, but since 1967, when it was re-established as part of the University of Singapore, the thrust of Malay Studies has radically shifted from what was basically a colonial interest on Malay language and literature to one which tries to impart, right, a very deep understanding of Malay culture and institutions as well as its history under the impact of very complex processes and factors of social change. And this is really, really something which is important. In all our modules, we have 33 undergraduate modules at this point of time. Our major objective is to ground students, right, in a very careful and very deep understanding of the Malay culture, its history and its institutions, not in a static and essentialized caricatured form, which is, basically the Orientalist, but more a kind of a very dynamic thing, right? For culture, we don't mean dress and food and dance. We mean also the agents, the transmitters of the culture, the elites, for example. The study of the elites become very much part and parcel of our curriculum. And in the study of culture also, we look at competing groups within the Malay community who attempt to define what their tradition is, what their culture is, in the midst of change, right? So it is a very dynamic kind of approach towards the study of culture, the study of institutions. And this dynamic approach, which carries through all our modules, whether it's the study of literature. We don't teach literature in a formalized way of looking at forms and styles, but literature as an expression of social history, as a mirror of values. Okay? Similarly, with the study of political culture also, we look at the interplay of group competing interests and their dynamics. And we also look at culture as a very broad thing, including the intellectual thought of the community. Then we look at also, history as the socio-economic history of the Malays, from the feudal period till the modern period. And apart from that, for institutions, of course, we look at so many areas, including religion. There's a lot of interest in the study of Islam, and I think there are many modules that we offer which none others do on a comparative scale. And also, I think we also look at other things like Malay families, as well as modules like gender studies and all that are relevant to the Malays. So it is a very broad curriculum, right, with an overarching theme of trying to understand how these institutions have come under the impact of dynamic social processes and how they attempt to adjust to social change. And we try to do that by imparting to students methodology and conceptual perspectives, which I think is very different from what is done elsewhere in Malaysia, for example, because we have this, we believe, right, in imbibing our students with good traditions from both the Asian philosophy as well as with traditions from the Western world. So our department, right, attempts to provide students with not just a multidisciplinary approach to the study of the Malays, but also with an exposure to multi-intellectual traditions. And this is unique, I think. Many of our students who have gone through some of our modules are quite surprised that we introduce them into ideas coming from the Western world and try to ask them to look at the relevance of these ideas to studying the Malays. So I also mentioned that Malay Studies is multidisciplinary, and that has always been its characteristic trait. We have in our department 7 people at the moment, 7 staff, all coming from different fields, different disciplines, and more than half coming from or having done their graduate studies in very good universities abroad in the Western world. So, I think that it is actually quite an interesting department, offering you all kinds of things which will be relevant also to your study of other in your undertaking other modules in FASS, because like other area studies, we complement any disciplines, so you can choose to read Malay Studies either as a minor or as a major or even as an elective, and can complement with other related disciplines. In the past, of course, we've had many students who did social work and Malay Studies, literature and Malay Studies and things like that. So the flexibility of the system allows you to do that. As far as exchange programs and the rest are concerned, we have been developing that over several years now. So our students have been brought to places like, apart from Southeast Asia, Turkey and Iran, where there are also other Muslim societies. Depending on the interests of the lecturer who is dealing with that module, there is a lot of room for exploration into this area, and we are taking it quite seriously. Apart from the exchange programs, well, we also contribute to other FASS curriculum in other ways. For example, the Dean just now highlighted several types of programs like global studies, religious studies minor. We also contribute to other programs on an elective basis. Now, having said all that, I'm not sure whether I have missed any other important things. There'll be another round of orientation talks when the term starts. But for now, any questions? No? Okay, not enough time. Okay, thank you then. Yeah.